elevated. Now it's my time to shine, yeah, let's go. Graduated, elevated. Now it's my time to shine, yeah, let's go. Major moves, power moves. Take it to the top one time non-stop. Gotta go, gotta flow. Take it to the...
Which moves me on to the next question. Because we know HIV, as you've said there, and there's also AIDS. And as a young person, I don't think I knew what the difference was. I just thought HIV is AIDS in my head.
Right.
And I didn't know how you move from HIV to AIDS.
Right.
Because that's not my research, like you said, in terms of stereotype and stigma. And I think in school, people be like, oh, you're from Africa. Oh, the AIDS, continent. Well, they called it a country, not a continent, which made it even worse, in terms of that. But the question then comes back to you to say, what is the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Yeah, of
And
course.
how do we move from HIV to AIDS?
Yeah, so of course. So HIV is the actual virus. So HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus, and AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And so looking at the HIV, like I said, HIV is the virus that can cause AIDS. So if people are going untreated with HIV, let's say for a couple years, they will eventually develop AIDS. And the process in which that happens is HIV is primarily attacking your CD4 T cells. And so your CD4 cells are a group of immune cells that help protect you against infections, viruses, pathogens. And so as that CD4 count begins to drop due to the HIV, you will eventually develop AIDS. And so AIDS is when that CD4 count has dropped below 200 cells. That's when your body is exposed to opportunistic infections. You're more susceptible to these diseases that a regular person with a healthy immune system wouldn't catch. And so I think that is the biggest difference between HIV and AIDS, because not everyone who has HIV develops AIDS. And so I think that's the importance of treatment and medication, is so that people with HIV can live long, healthy lives with medication and they'll never develop AIDS.
And then the next question is, going back to stigma, stereotype, if a woman has HIV, based on your research, can they still get pregnant and have children, have a lovely life? Or, is that it, no-go area, you can't have kids, your life is finished, from a scientific perspective, of course.
Thanks to modern advances in medicine, anyone, whether you are a woman or a man, you can live a regular, healthy life and not worry about spreading it to your partner. As long as you are taking your daily medication, you don't have to worry about spreading it to your partner. Or for women who are spreading it, who could potentially spread it to their baby, that's no longer a worry, thankfully, due to, like I said, modern advancements in medication. Antiretroviral therapy has been really great for that. And like I said, people can have babies and the baby will be non-HIV infected. The baby can live a full, healthy life, not even having to worry about HIV, or at least from the transmission from their mother.
Excellent. So the next question is, what made you actually apply for a PhD?
Yeah, of course. That's actually a long story. I'll start from, as a child, I knew I always wanted to be a doctor. I love science. So I just never knew about scientists. I never knew about what a PhD was. I never knew the pathway to become a scientist or a doctor of philosophy. And so not until my undergraduate, until I was an undergraduate in college, did I begin to learn. And it was through a peer, a colleague, she had recommended me for this research opportunity. She was like, this is a really great opportunity. It will look great on your application to medical school. And they're also giving a stipend. And so, I was a little bit hungry for money. I was struggling a little bit. So the money was a huge motivator. And like I said, also because I was planning to apply to medical school, I was like, oh, this will look great on the application. So I applied, and thankfully I was accepted for this opportunity. And I feel like that was God's first sign to me of saying, PhD, this is your pathway. And so I did that research opportunity. I looked at breast cancer in Black women and Latina women. And primarily, I investigated this specific molecule called CXCL1, and how that could disproportionately affect Black and Latino women when looking at breast cancer. And I had such a great experience with that. I was able to overcome the initial challenges of research. Because to be honest, when I first started, I was like, oh no, I do not see myself doing this. I was like, this is too hard. I want to quit. I don't want to come in. But my PI, my principal investigator, or my mentor, they told me, stay encouraged, keep going. The data, this happens. This happens to scientists who have been in the field for years. So keep going, keep pushing, you're doing great. And then I had that breakthrough around, I would say maybe 3 months into the research program. I had a breakthrough, and I got some stellar data, some data that had never been discovered from our lab before, and I was excited. I got a chance to present that data at conferences. I even got to present it at a local church in the community, and that was really important to me because I love the translational aspect of research, of getting that research out to our community and educating our community. And from then, I was like, maybe I could be a scientist. So at that point, I was like, pandering between like just MD programs or MD PhD programs. And so I was like, I definitely could do MD PhD programs. I got some more research experience through my university, through summer programs. And that further encouraged me. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing MD PhD at this point. And then after I graduated, I went to go do research at the NIH. And so at the NIH, I was under the mentorship of Dr. Daryl Murray and Dr. Marema. I'm forgetting, I'm flashing a little bit. But yeah, I was under the mentorship of the NIH, and it was this program called the Undergraduate Scholarship Program. And so they mentored me all throughout my undergraduate years of research careers, or if I wanted to go medical careers. And so once I got at the NIH for my post-bac year, we really started talking about whether I should apply to MD PhD programs or PhD programs, and how that would connect with my career goals. And I was able to have some clinical shadowing experience as well. And I feel like once I got that clinical shadowing experience, I really discovered that I wanted to go the PhD route. Because what I noticed in the clinical shadowing and experiences, there's a lot of things as a medical doctor that I couldn't change. I couldn't change what was already in the books, like, or what you could prescribe to patients. If the book says you have to prescribe this to patients, you have to follow the book and prescribe this to patients or treat patients this way. And I feel like it was very so legislative, and research was just so expansive. You were able to critically think, ask thought-provoking questions. I remember when I was clinically shadowing, I would ask questions and they were like, don't ask that. Or they would be like, oh, it's just because the way it is when I ask questions. And I was like, I just hated that approach. And I was like, I would love to be immersed in a education, in a career where I can constantly ask these critical thinking questions, where I can constantly find new ways of thinking, find new ways of approaching a problem. And I felt like I wouldn't have been able to do that as a medical doctor in the way I could do that as a scientist. And that way I knew, I was like, PhD is the way I am going to be a scientist. I can just make as much of it as an impact as a scientist as I can as a medical doctor. And I feel like there's a big stigma. I feel like oftentimes people discredit doctors of philosophy compared to medical doctors. I'm like, no, we are just all as equally important, because it's the scientists who are in the lab who are finding these cures so the doctors can give those to the patients. And so it takes a team. We are just as equally important as each other. And like I said, I loved research. I really fell in love with research, especially at the NIH, because that was all I was doing. I wasn't even taking classes at that point. I was just doing research. I had the awesome mentor, and this was my first Black woman mentor. Because previously at the institutions I was at, they're mainly white. Like almost all the professors were white. And then so once I got at the NIH and I was able to be matched with a Black woman, it was just phenomenal. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think all scientists are great, but just someone who could relate with me on a cultural aspect, not only cater to my educational and scientific needs, but a personal need, like conversations that you maybe wouldn't feel comfortable having with a white professor or a white principal investigator. I was comfortable and I felt like I could really be open with her and true to myself. And I feel like she really helped boost my confidence and really embellish who I am as a scientist, both in the lab and outside of the lab. So I feel like all those experiences culminated, really pushed me to applying to a PhD.
That sounds amazing. Funny enough, I've just interviewed a physician who's in the US, but she's also she's just finished her master's and she wants to do her PhD, but she's publishing because she's realized that there's a gap in the market, because being a physician, you don't really get to write anything and you can't research it essentially. So that's her focus, which is what you're saying basically. And she realized as well, she was in the minority in terms of she's from East Asia, not to mention her name, but yeah, so no. I think I relate and I understand in terms of, you know, what actually got you to say this is it. So moving on to the questions that I've received, because I know that we're about to run out of time, is, you know, in your opinion, do you think higher education breaks the poverty cycle, or do you think, you know what, that's all in the past? Now you can be, you know, an influencer. You don't really need education. What's your take on that?
Wait, and I'm sorry, the question is, do I think that higher education breaks the poverty cycle?
Yes.
Absolutely not. I feel like there's also so many other barriers to even just getting into higher education. I mean, because a lot of these universities are putting on their mission statements that they want diverse applicants. When I'm telling you, I remember going on an interview to this Ivy League school. They interviewed 60 people. Out of 60 people, 2 of us were Black. 2. This was just last year, because remind you, I'm a first-year PhD student. This is just last year, 2023. This is after the Black Lives Matter, and this is still the year where affirmative action was still effective in the U.S. So this was with affirmative action that 2 people that they decided to interview out of 60 people were Black. Now, I was blessed to get in, but I don't want to feel like a token student. I don't want to feel like just a 1% of people in the program, and then they're showing me off to say that, oh, we have diversity. It's like, no, you guys do not have diversity. I'm the only, once the people get there, once the people leave the website and get to the school and they see I'm the only person there, they're going to feel bamboozled. And so I said all of that to say is, there's so many barriers to just getting in higher education, such as cost, access, you know, being exposed to higher education. Like I said, I had never been even exposed to research prior to being undergraduate. And if someone didn't recommend me for the opportunity to do research, there's a good chance I may have never been exposed and just been a medical doctor. So I think exposure is important, being in the right environments, because if you compare like primarily white institutions to like maybe historically Black colleges and universities, or even if you look before that at the K through 12 level, those schools are not having the same academic programs, extracurricular activities. They're not having the same speakers come to the schools. There is a huge gap in the resources that are offered to primarily white institutions and historically Black institutions or colleges, universities. Like I said, there's just such a barrier to getting to higher education. However, I think higher education is still important. I think I cannot stress enough how important going to get an education, regardless of what you do. Getting an education teaches you how to write and communicate with others. And that's essential, like I said, no matter what you do, whether you decide to become a YouTuber, an influencer. And I feel like you can tell the difference of people who have received a formal education and people who may have not had that same opportunity to get an education. And you can tell in the ways that they strategize their work, or maybe the way they communicate their work, the way they organize themselves. Those skills are just so necessary. And I think, like I said, that's why you see a disproportion in jobs of hiring between Black people and white people, because it's like white people just have so many more resources available to them in a country, like I said, specifically speaking to the United States, in a country that it was designed for them to succeed. And it was only designed for us to be slaves. We were never in mind. We were never in mind to make it this far in higher education. Like all the white people back in the 1800s, 1700s, they would not be able to take me. They would not be able to see me here at Ivy League University. Today, oh no, they Black and gay? Oh no, this is too much for them. So I feel like it's now that we have the opportunity, now that our ancestors or our forefathers, such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, and there are so many more important figures that I have not named. But all those people who have made the opportunity for us to go into higher education, we need to take that and not take it for granted. And like I said, I just can't stress enough the importance of an education.
Yeah, I
And
think
social influencers are not the way. And I think like maybe only 1% of influencers really make it to a way that they can sustain their career off of only influencing. And then, like I said, social media, it changes so rapidly. One day you can be hot and one day not. So, and one thing that never fades is education, intelligence, brains. People like, especially as I have been on social media, a lot of people criticize my looks, but one thing they can't criticize is my intelligence. That's the one thing in the comments I don't see is they don't come at me about my brains or my education or my research experience. They come at me about of being gay or having long nails or having long hair. And to me, all that's artificial, arbitrary. So come at something real, come at something sustainable, and they can't. And so to me, like I said, that's why I love having the opportunity and being blessed enough to have an education, and especially higher education.
Yeah, I agree with you. And do you know what? The reality is you can't move to New Zealand if you don't have a degree. You can't move to Australia if you don't have a degree. You can't go to Canada without a degree because they want people who have skills and the backing. And if you work in a factory, then you're a skilled worker. And then to work your way up, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. But you have to remember that you're a woman and then you realize that you're Black at the end of the day. There is that in some of these countries. So I think, your response not to side with you, I think it's well informed. And you are right, because there's algorithms as well with the internet. And that affects your mental health if you're always focusing on how many people view your videos, which essentially me and you, we know, because YouTube, sometimes I can get 1 view. It happens, sometimes 0. And I'm like, oh, okay. That was a really good video. I thought it was good. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. It's so important to have confidence knowing, like, regardless of views or likes, whether it was good material or not. Because like I said, according to the algorithm, like one of my videos went viral to like 500,000 views. And then one of my views maybe had 5,000 views. And I thought the video that went viral, it was less substance, to be honest. And I thought the video that didn't go viral, it was a bigger, more important message. So, and I feel like you should feel equally as good and equally as important, regardless of whether you are a viral sensation or not. The work that you do is important.
No, I thank you very much. I agree with you. And also, I was just going to say, I've seen a bit of banter because we always have to stay trending, as they say, in terms of my colleagues, my team. And there's been a bit of talk in terms of why Beyonce doesn't talk because allegedly she doesn't have an education. Beyonce, I'm not saying you don't have because I've never spoken to you, but allegedly that's why she doesn't really speak in public because, you know, the adverbs and the adjectives are missing. Allegedly, so I've heard.
I would say I would have to disagree with that. I would say maybe one of the main reasons that Beyonce may be hesitant to speak in public as much these days because everyone's so critical. No matter what you say, there are going to be people who are criticizing, no matter how positive the message. People will intentionally misconstrue your message and try to weaponize it to villainize you. So I can understand why she may not be as vocal these days or going on interviews. And I don't think it has anything to do with her intellect. I think it's just more so, it's just so hard to say and be authentically yourself because, like I said, people are just so busy trying to cancel you over just one small little thing. So, yeah.
It is difficult. You'll be glad to know this is the last question. And the last question is, you know, coming here on this platform, this is PhD Hard Talk. Do you think PhD Hard Talk is beneficial to the community in terms of doctoral students and also the universities? Or do you think, do you know what, Norma, call it a day. It's not working. What's your opinion?
No, I would say keep going. I have loved this interview, and hopefully it can reach people and inspire them to go to school, get a higher education, and get a doctorate, to be a scientist, to be a sociologist, or whatever field. I hope it inspires people, and I think that what your platform does is it can reach a wider audience of people and educate them about a topic that maybe they never knew. And the way that just one small video can change people's lives forever is just groundbreaking. And I think that's one of the powers of the internet is just being able to reach such a large audience. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think what you're doing is amazing. I've checked out a couple of your videos. I really enjoyed the discussions. And I'm looking forward to see what content you have next. So keep going, keep going. That's my words.
Thank you very much. And I would like to take this time to say thank you so much for your time and for educating me in terms of HIV and everybody at home. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, your details will be at the bottom of the screen. And also, I would love to talk to you, I think, when you get into your second, going into your third year, because I think your research findings will be really interesting. And also the educational aspect in terms of the wider community, as we've spoken to say, you know, we've got Africa, people have the stereotypes behind HIV, and also the women and the population of women that actually have HIV as well as other diseases. You know, it's a big, massive. Actually, there's a conference we can talk about that when we finish our call. But you know, I'd love to know a bit more in terms of your findings, essentially. But if you'd like to share your details as well in terms of where people can find you on socials and your content as well, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Instagram at moses.akhen. It's MOSES.AKHEN on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. I just started a TikTok, so I'm pretty new. Bear with me. And on TikTok, you can find me at moses.akhenaten. It's just my first name dot last name. And at the moment, those are the only two socials I have. But I do plan on starting a YouTube myself, so be on the lookout for that. And
Lovely. I'm excited. Will it be about HIV or are you just going to do the PhD journey? What? Anyway, do you actually want to share or you don't want to share?
honestly, I would do a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. Because I think I am a very multifaceted person, and I just don't want to limit myself to only primarily one type of content. So I think it will be a broad spectrum of content from science to PhD to HIV to me as a person, community outreach, to maybe a little bit about makeup and hair. I also love makeup and hair. I love nails as well. Yeah, I think I'm not sure where I plan on going with it, but I plan for it to be a multifaceted channel.
Before we go, I'd like to say thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.